Hi, I'm Andy Luke, a writer who draws, and I'm a big fan of Press Gang. So I've been going through each episode for a deep dive, and we're now at the series one finale. Shouldn't I be taller? On the front page. The penultimate episode was gloomy and final, and the finale is madcap and upbeat. This is what Moffat's first series of Press Gang and Doctor Who have in common, except the former has already had its big bang. It's an episode which pulls apart the status quo and reassembles it and tugs on the heartstrings. Episode 12, Shouldn't I Be Taller, sees Lynda remembering her conversations with David Jefford, moved to leave the paper, the school, and her home in Norbridge. The story moves around Spike's efforts to track her down as voting opens to elect a new editor. And Colin's got over the tragedy quickly. Spike appeals to Sullivan for help in returning Lynda with the first appearance of enfants terribles, Sophie and Laura. Johanna Borman as Sophie, later recast to be played by Rosie Marcel, and Claire Herndon as Laura. Sophie and Laura will become the evil henchgirls of Colin in the second season. In keeping with their future appearances, these two first years are creepily obsessed with fatality. They move like minor trickster deities, interrupting Spike's search for Lynda by measuring Sullivan's skull for a tomb. Concern already grows that Colin may replace Lynda. Only Spike seems focused on locating her as priority. Colin runs a Trumpian playbook, rolling around in sensationalism, employing slurs and smears, and generally lying his ass off. Spike takes a phone call from Billy,
Hi, Billy. How's paralysis?
Oh, sleeping in his basket as usual.
which seems to be the news of the removal of Lynda's entry from the school database. The tip-off sends Spike bursting into Lynda's home to discover she's gone. Here, the director's lingering on Julie, the last to cast her vote in the election, and it suggests she has the deciding vote. Under Colin, she can produce a more dynamic-looking paper, driven by images over textual substance. Fraz appears to be assistant editor, and Danny, executive dog's body. A fine way for Charlie Creed Miles to spend his last episode. Tiddler objects, obviously. Kenny objects, and has sold a can of Quila, a drink which leaves unfortunate stains. Sarah is furious and Spike is indignant. Essentially, the newsroom has slipped into a mirror universe where tabloid rag principles are the order of the day. It's light stuff plot-wise, all silly, and lapped up by fans of Paul Reynolds, who is so much fun as a Junior Gazette's part Emperor Caligula, equal part Norse god Loki. Meanwhile, Sarah tells us Spike is falling back into bad company. Sarah is a compassionate soul, and she has a soft spot for Spike. She has some level of trust in Colin, and quickly learns it's misplaced. And Karen and Sullivan are not fans of the all-new Gaz either. This reminds me of something in local media around the same time. Downtown Radio was a respected voice for journalism throughout the Troubles since 1960s, and their choice of music represented the edgy side of centrist commercial fare. Downtown launched a sister station, Cool FM, in 1990, reveling in 24 hours a day, mindless beat dance garbage hosted by hyperactive fish. It's a trend we've seen up and down providers, be they TV, radio, or papers, the MTVification of media, a race to the bottom in quality based on what owners think the kids want. Fork the kids, I say.
Well, sir?
All I want is a lie down and some aspirin.
And here's Sophie and Laura measuring up one of the teachers. This is Miss Trench, played by Suzanne Church, last seen in both sides of the paper. Billy's attempted hacking of the school computers is thwarted by Miss Hessop's computer illiteracy, and using the image of Lynda to sell the gas is the last straw for Spike. Thankfully, Sullivan shows mercy on him. The episode standard scene is Spike and Lynda's heart-to-heart in the dress shop. Runtime, 3.5 minutes. Lynda talks about the paper's first issue, which almost destroyed it, and her search afterwards for different clothes, for a different identity. Lynda's appalling dress sense is a running joke, but it's here we learn it's a manifestation of her jumbled internal state. Despite the confident bravado, there's something deep inside Lynda Day that's tangled and frustrating her, keeping her from resting. Something that's pushed her onwards to not be the best version of herself, but always to be a better version. She's still hurt by David and seemingly wants to bury her potential along with him. Retreating into isolation is in line perhaps with how she thinks the world expects her to behave. And because Lynda projects herself onto the world around her and her manipulation too, Spike accidentally drops a copy of the Gaz at her feet. Meanwhile, the ex-assistant editor is living in the Mad King's dungeons, well, the floor. Soft drinks are staining and cookers are exploding. The boss comes back and business is resumed. The tyrant is gone.
Danny, start trembling.
Well, that certainly was final. Critically, the Series 1 closer is light on substance but completely satisfies because of the same lightness. It's a joy to see the cast and crew do their thing in the absurd Colin plot. When people talk about Spike and Lynda, it's in terms of romance but not friendship. Well, that's justifiable. Moffat, Fletcher, Swahala, all have used Series 1 to engineer their blossoming friendship many times, though it's never moved in a straight line. Shouldn't I Be Taller positively blooms it. And now onto our biographical feature. If you want to go straight to the series summary and telephone tally, go to this timecode. With so much of this episode focusing on Spike, it's only right that we devote our special feature to Dexter Fletcher. You should see on screen now the special graphic designed to accompany this. It's not ready at time of recording because Julie's just popped out for 10 minutes, but I'm sure she'll be back and hard at work on it. Okay, special feature, Dexter Fletcher. Born 31st of January 1966, Dexter was the oldest of Press Gang's kiddie cast and most experienced theatrically. His on-screen debut was 1973 as Small Boy in Steptoe and Son Ride Again, the BBC's beloved edgy comedy about an abusive father and son scrap dealers. 3 years later, he'd feature in Alan Parker's Bugsy Malone, a film which took gangster mythology and placed it in the performances of children. And in 1980, as Bites Boy in The Elephant Man. Dexter attended the newly opened Anna Sher Theatre School in Islington, 8 miles away from the family home in Enfield. The Anna Sher School was distinctive for its lack of auditions and lengthy waiting list. An independent school that was respected for breaking down barriers in allowing working class kids to get into the industry. It focused on natural delivery, natural voice, in an age when the BBC were still focusing on received pronunciation. Press Gang alumni included Charlie Creed Miles, Lee McDonald, and Jake Wood. Dexter had 2 older brothers, both working child actors, Steve and Graham. Graham was particularly prolific. He also managed to get cast on Bugsy Malone. His IMDb entry shows him acting on screen every year from 1975 to 2000. And Graham is in several of Dexter's directorial ventures, Wild Bill, Eddie the Eagle, and Rocket Man. At some point, the boy's mother took on the role of their agent. In the 1990s, she'd also represent other members of the cast of Press Gang. 1989, The Rachel Papers, a British comedy film based on the book by Martin Amis. Fletcher plays an Oxford student who has developed computerized formulas for seduction, but he has one true love. It's got suggestions of being a British Ferris Bueller, a style Amis was not happy with, shall we say. It was critically panned, though Fletcher's acting talents were singled out for praise. So much so that newcomers to Press Gang would refer to Dexter as that guy from the Rachel Papers. Spike is one of the central drivers of the setup in Press Gang and the show's trajectory. His laid-back demeanour, quip machine humour make him a likeable figure. Gone are his origins in the series Bible as a gang leader who scratches up Matt Kerr's car and is at war with Fraz, though we do get reminders of his troubled past consistently in fits of aggression, and it's the focus of his storyline in picking up the pieces when he goes after a boy in school who's written nasty things about Lynda. Press gang fandom is equally divided on those who thought poorly of Fletcher's American accent and those who thought he wasn't American, like me. The choice was spurred on by producer Sandra Hosty, if I recall, with Moffat later regretting lumbering him with the accent. I feel it hurts Moffat's script more than Fletcher's performance, with many funny lines lost beneath the drawl. Press gang didn't rest in giving Fletcher chances to display his breadth. The storylines featuring Judy O'Brien and Spike's father are two such notables. In my research, I discovered a few Easter eggs. In 1991, he'd appear in Dawn French's comic crime anthology, Murder Most Horrid. The show has so many links to Press Gang, it's worthy of its own feature. Series 1, Episode 5, Murder at Tea Time, was directed by Bob Spears. Andy Parsons also appears, the voice of Cool Cat. In 1993, Fletcher had a brush with Doctor Who, playing the narrator of the Unit recruiting film.
It's a man's life in Unit. You never know what you're going to see next.
When he left Press Gang, he took over as the evangelical leader of a cult, which counted Sir Patrick Moore as its members. Okay, Games Master isn't quite an Easter egg. He was well known for this role and it seems was quite unpopular because of it. Host Dominic Diamond, who Fletcher replaced for Series 3, says he felt it was a lost series. Diamond temporarily left Games Master partly due to the sponsorship deal with McDonald's, and Dexter would return to do adverts for the company later in 2021.
Need ketchup.
Years later, Fletcher would speak in interviews how his time in Games Master never quite felt right for him. There's a suggestion this also came in the actor's wild years of drugs and late-night parties. It was around this time his life would be turned around by Alan Rickman, who became a mentor until his death in 2016. Rickman encouraged him to appear on stage, and the first gig was a meeting with Lithuanian theatre director Dalia Ibelhauptiet. Dalia and Dexter would marry in 1997, with Alan Rickman serving as their best man. In recognition of Dexter's work promoting Lithuanian cultural affairs, he was granted dual citizenship of the country, and in 2019, he and Dalia created their production company, DXD Films Limited. The year they were married, he appeared in Kylie Minogue's music video for Some Kind of Bliss. Around the same time, he'd worked with the Divine Comedy, the best comedy to come out of Northern Ireland after Frank Carson and before Derry Girls. Back when he was at school and appearing in films no one's ever heard of, such as The Elephant Man by David Lynch, one of Dexter's mates was Miguel Miggy Baradas. Miggy was the drummer on the Divine Comedy's sixth album, Fin de Siècle. Dexter's narration appears in the album's penultimate track, Here Comes the Flood. It's presumably about Hollywood's idea of the apocalypse, and the contribution is a memorable one.
Still, here I am, just another worried little citizen of this modern-day Pompeii, waiting for the meltdown, the showdown, the great American closedown.
His most visible role in this period was playing Soap in Guy Ritchie's Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. I rewatched it for this piece and, well, it's very Cockney, isn't it? Cockney pulp fiction of a sort. Overly stylized, but a great piece of fun nonetheless, an abundance of black humour. Soap, aka the chef, plays one of four friends who invest in a high-stakes card game which goes wrong and puts him on the wrong end of a half-dozen eccentric villains.
Oi! Keep your fingers out of my soup.
Soap is called Soap because he likes to keep his hands clean of any unlawful behaviour. He's proud of his job and even more proud that it's legal. He represents the more sensible side of the four.
Soap fluctuates between being the quiet man, the cynical voice of sanity, the verbose psycho, and over the top. So written very inconsistently, but always entertaining. Fletcher's bibliography is so expansive I have to skim over a few important pieces. The critically acclaimed HBO miniseries Band of Brothers, taking place over the final 4 years of World War II on the Western Front, co-created by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. The high-density action miniseries has a large ensemble. BBC drama Hotel Babylon, a 5-star London hotel with Dexter appearing as Tony the concierge in 32 episodes. There's also a memorable role in 2 episodes of Howard Overman's Delinquents with Superpowers series Misfits. Fletcher plays Spike, father to Nathan the Annoying. Robert Sheehan and Dexter Fletcher play brilliantly off one another, and it's a delightful piece of casting. He looks absolutely terrible, though. The 2000s saw Fletcher reinvent himself as a mature actor. In the next decade, he would emerge as a director to watch. Wild Bill is Dexter's fine first effort as a director. It debuted in 2011, dedicated to his father who passed away the same year. Charlie Creed Miles is cast as Bill, fresh out of 8 years in the nick to discover the mother of his teenage boys abandoned them a year before. Creed Miles plays a role with a coolness, almost a weariness, the character readable through his actions rather than his face or words. Will Poulter, his eldest son Dean, has an intense maturity that's near tangible and edgy. Liz White's always welcome presence brings a warmth as crime refugee Roxy. Iwan Rheon's comedy chops and flex as a mad dealer, and Leo Gregory is terrifying as Terry the gangster. Oh, and Andy Serkis, brief but fun. The drama aspect of the movie is dominant, creating a brutally uncomfortable realist horror. The laughs are slower to come, and when they do, they're big whoops or smiles. The cinematography is good. There's a shadowy tint to the colours, giving many of the sets a nicotine-stained look. Fletcher's script, for which he shares credit with Danny King, is a slow-boiled narrative, yet there's plenty to keep the attention. The follow-up in the director's chair was Sunshine on Leith. Adapted from the Scottish musical stage show, it's about 2 young soldiers who've returned home and found that fitting back into civilian life is not how they thought it might go. The script, casting, sets, and photography are all excellent. The musical aspects are handled so that the transitions are seamless, affecting an organic direction. Perhaps my favourite scene is the one in which Kevin Guthrie's character wants to propose to his girlfriend, leading his friends to demonstrate how it should be done. A funny visual feast that really pulls you in. The most anti-military viewers will be softened by Leith's heartwarming spectacle. Directing a musical adds another string to Fletcher's bow. Audiences growing up with Preston can't have failed to notice the story of Eddie the Eagle, which Fletcher adapted for his next directorial outing. Michael Eddie Edwards became a pre-internet viral sensation for his antics and record-breaking award at the 1987 Winter Olympics. And the media rightly grasped his outsider status, perseverance, and down-to-earth manner.
Now listen, there's a hairdresser in Bristol claiming that she's been your lover for the last 2 years. Any comment?
Scriptwriters Sean Macaulay and Simon Kelton and actor Taron Egerton do a bang-up job bringing these to life. Hugh Jackman plays Eddie's rough-around-the-edges trainer, and the pairing with Egerton makes for a classic movie coupling. Fletcher optimises the scenery, the red brick terrace houses that Eddie came from, and the white everywhere landscapes in the bulk of the film, which give it a clean, defined look. The underdog's narrative is often uplifting, inspiring, and ensures a warm, fuzzy viewing experience. Dexter was attached to direct the life story of Freddie Mercury before Bryan Singer took over. 2 weeks before shooting ended, Singer was fired and Fletcher took over. But I presume this means he composed all the cuts, pastes, and mixes of the film. Critics have been unfair to this movie, but I feel that's unwarranted. It boasts a huge amount of effort, and there's a clear vision at play, the work of both directors fitting seamlessly. Not a musical, it does concern itself with the importance of Bohemian Rhapsody in relation to the narrative, the variety the piece of music has to it. Mr. Robot star Rami Malek is an unusual choice and unexpectedly perfect. His performance and the film's assets are twinned. It's funny, charismatic, scales aesthetic fashion heights, a magnetic thrill. Bohemian Rhapsody gives us a Freddie Mercury with a short-sighted naivete, a man focused yet lost, an inspiring hypocrite, literally mercurial but mired and waiting, and his ailing health affects sobering feels. It's about creators and as much about the receivers, we who listen to music, replay it, dance to it and sing along, how we help artists with words of encouragement, facilitating their art getting around, being willing to be included in their journey, liking, commenting, subscribing, and there's some great cat acting. On the heels of Bohemian Rhapsody, he'd explore similar ground in Rocket Man. Eddie the Eagle Egerton was in negotiations to be cast as Elton John. Lock Stock producer Matthew Vaughn was approached to produce and agreed on condition Egerton would play the lead, and Vaughn brought aboard Fletcher to direct. As with his previous rock biopic, the script is littered with historical inaccuracies, but that appears not to be an issue in enjoying the film. It was widely censored in not friendly to LGBT countries and scooped a lorry load of awards. In The Guardian, Mark Kermode wrote, "Fletcher is a real star of this show, a director whose enthusiasm for musical storytelling shines through every frame." Lately, he's directed 2 episodes of The Offer, a mini-series about the development and production of The Godfather, and the 2023 film, Ghosted. Billed as a romantic action-adventure comedy, it's written by familiar names from the Deadpool movies and Community. So it's the end of the series, which means it's time to look at the phone bill, tallying the occasions where a telephone has been used, key to the plot. We begin with Colin illegally installing a phone line. Matt Kerr finds out about the phone, advancing the narrative for the paper. Colin tricks a local celebrity. Julie cajoles Sarah into turning in a lead article. Lynda threatens Spike with expulsion. Norbridge High has internets. The Junior Gazette has internets. A submission from the mystery writer. Billy's second submission and Lynda processing her breakup. Kenny's mother will call the newsroom with Jenny's number. And the ringing phone means nothing when Kenny and Lynda can argue over it. More arguments are a handy excuse for Kenny not to call Jenny. And Kenny eventually makes a phone call. Kenny updates Jenny, thinking he's talking to her mother. They want to talk, but are limited by the technology. Operation Coordination. Bleeding the advertisers. Jenny chooses Kenny over the limits of phones. The Phone Ranger. The Job Offer. Catching the culprits, asking out Ethel Stuttgart, locating Lynda, and selling cookers and staging a coup. Wow, it is all about the phones. Press Gang Series 1 may critically be ranked the weakest of the 5, and compared with other sitcoms of the era, it comes out strong. Notable classics, for my money, are Deadline, A Night In, How to Make a Killing, Both Sides of the Paper, and Monday, Tuesday, with only Money, Love and Birdseed failing to hit the grade. At the time of recording, only my first 2 deep dives have gone public, and so I'm not sure how this series will be received. The feature segments are also taking much more work since I personalised them. Thanks, Julie. I'll be picking up on Series 2 early in 2025. Meanwhile, please check out the channel for new reviews on Wednesdays and Always Sunny Sundays, and the archive stuff. I recommend the Star Wars Ahsoka series, particularly if you have no interest in it. Onboarding will be provided. While this channel is small enough, I have to thank all my Patreon patrons. Sonia Andre, Richard Wang, Shell, Andrew Bolster, Donald Fallon, Andrew Gallagher, Amanda Rodriguez, John Robbins, Ian Lawther, who is also helping with the tech, Alan Royal, Claire Dixon, Yerka Yemrick, Dave Cromie, Ben Benchalada Stone, and particularly Arslan Hyder Ali, the Lightbinder, and Art Kondratiev, Director of Makerspace Farset Labs. You can add your name to that list for £1 per month. Aquila not included. However, that gets you electronic access to all my books, comics, poetry, and a Christmas card while stocks last. Also 9 advanced looks at videos per month. If I can raise another couple of hundred, I can open up annual subscriptions. And by the time you're watching this, I have a new book out, Coastlines After Dark, which has a Garth Marenghi feel, inspired by Baywatch Nights, and an introduction by Allison Pregler, and a cover by Sean Duffield. There's a link in the description. Thank you for watching. This has been a joy to make. And PLCSS, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Stop trying to coin the phrase
PLCSS. See y'all soon.